Have you ever built something with your own hands? Something you poured your sweat, your money, and your love into, only to watch someone rip it apart just because they could? That's what happened to me, and by the time you hear the end of this story, you'll understand why I did something that shocked an entire town, and why, to this day, I don't regret it for a second. That was the line I used when I told friends what happened. And it's the same line I'll use with you, because I want you to feel what I felt every step of the way. I wasn't born rich, and I sure wasn't born with land or lakes or bridges. What I did have was a stubborn streak, a toolbox, and a dream. I bought a rundown piece of property out in the countryside. Thick trees, wild grass, and an old fishing lake with a small dam at the far end. It was nothing fancy, the kind of place most people would have called a headache. But to me, it was heaven. And at the center of that heaven was my bridge. It wasn't a grand bridge, not some massive steel thing. No, it was simple, just wood, rope, and stone footings that I laid with my own hands. It stretched across the narrowest part of the lake, connecting my cabin to the trail that wound into the woods. Every plank, every nail, was a piece of me. I spent months working on it after long days at my job, hammering by lantern light, patching blisters with duct tape. By the time I was done, it wasn't just a bridge. It was freedom. It was proof I could build something lasting. And for a while, it was perfect. I'd walk that bridge at sunrise, coffee steaming in my hand, watching fish jump in the lake below. Neighbors came by sometimes. Fishermen, hikers, families with kids who wanted to see Mr. Bridge's Crossing, as they nicknamed it. That bridge wasn't just wood and rope anymore. It was memory. It was community. But that was before they came. If you've never dealt with a homeowners association, let me tell you something: they don't always feel like neighbors. Sometimes they feel like landlords with clipboards, even if you own the land yourself. When a big developer bought the acres next to mine, they didn't just put up houses. They built a full-blown resort, luxury cabins, a golf course, even a spa that looked like it belonged in a glossy magazine. And of course, they formed an HOA to keep it all shiny and controlled. At first, I didn't care. Let them have their manicured lawns and their fancy rules about mailbox colors. I wasn't part of their development. I was just that guy on the old lake. But it didn't take long before they started noticing my bridge. See, the edge of my property line ran right up against the lake that their resort advertised as a private amenity. Their brochures showed smiling families kayaking and playing by the water, but what they didn't mention was that half that water was mine. Legally, the dam sat on my land, which meant without me maintaining it, there wouldn't be a lake at all. Just a muddy basin. That's where the tension started. At first, it was polite. HOA reps showing up at my door with fake smiles. Lovely bridge you've got there. But, it doesn't exactly match the aesthetics of our community. You understand, right? Then, it was firmer. We've had some complaints. Liability concerns, you see, if someone crosses and gets hurt. And, finally, it was threatening. Either you take it down yourself, or we'll file for removal. This is your last warning. I refused. Over and over again I refused. That bridge wasn't hurting anyone. It was on my land. It was mine. So one morning, I came home from a trip into town and froze. The bridge was gone. Imagine walking into your yard and finding your heart torn in half. Planks ripped up, ropes cut, stone footings smashed with a sledgehammer. Nothing left but splinters floating in the water. I stood there on the bank, fist shaking, not even able to breathe. They'd destroyed it. I found out later they'd hired a contractor to come in early, before sunrise, and take it apart, for safety reasons. But let me tell you, it wasn't about safety. It was about control. They didn't want anything on that lake that didn't belong to their shiny resort vision. And for me, it wasn't just wood. It was years of sweat. It was mornings with my coffee, evenings with my dog padding across the planks. It was a piece of my soul. I tried fighting it. filed complaints, talked to lawyers, shouted at HOA meetings where they looked at me like I was the crazy one. But you can't fight a machine with money behind it. Every door slammed shut in my face. That's when something inside me snapped. See, I wasn't powerless. Not really. Because remember what I told you, that dam at the far end of the lake. It was mine. My grandfather used to say, "He who controls the water, controls the land." And as I stood there staring at the ruins of my bridge, I realized I still had one card left to play. They wanted control. Fine. Let's see how they liked it when the water was gone. It didn't happen right away. I wrestled with the decision for weeks. I'd sit at the dam at night, flashlight beam bouncing off the water, thinking about everything I'd lose if I opened it. The fish. The beauty of the lake. The little sanctuary I'd built. But then I'd remember the smirk on the HOA president's face as he told me, "You'll thank us later." I'd see the jagged remains of my bridge in my mind, over and over, like a wound that wouldn't heal. And slowly, the answer became clear. If they could destroy something I loved without even asking, then maybe they didn't deserve the thing they loved most. The lake that made their resort worth $4 million, and one stormy night, with rain pelting the earth and wind howling through the trees, I took a wrench, walked to the dam, and put my hands on the wheel that controlled the gate. My heart was pounding. My palms were slick with sweat. But as I turned that wheel and heard the first rush of water gurgle through the chute, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. I watched as the current roared louder, and the lake began to shift, just slightly, like it was holding its breath. The bridge might have been gone, but now, the real battle was just beginning. At first, nothing looked different. The rain came down heavy that night, disguising the gurgle of the outflow. If anyone had passed by, they might have thought it was just another storm filling the woods with rushing water. But I knew that for the first time since they tore down my bridge, the power was in my hands. The wheel on that dam was stiff, old iron crusted with rust, but as it turned, it sang like a broken horn. Loud, creaking, defiant. And when I stepped back, soaked and trembling, I could already hear the river below surging louder. The lake was bleeding, slow at first, like a wound reopening. I walked back to my cabin that night in the dark, the storm hiding my grin. It wasn't a cruel grin. It was the grin of a man who'd been silenced too long, finally speaking. By morning, the lake was down a few inches. Nothing dramatic. The resort guests still snapped photos from their balconies, still rented kayaks from the dock. But I could see it. The waterline receding. The damp mud ring forming like a bruise around the shore. The HOA noticed by day 3. They sent me a letter, printed on glossy paper, full of legal jargon. Unapproved water release. Potential property damage. Seize immediately. I pinned it to my fridge with a magnet shaped like a fish and went back to my coffee. By the end of week 1, panic was setting in. The beach they'd advertised in their brochures was now a stretch of slimy mud. The dock tilted awkwardly, its posts exposed like bones. Fish flopped closer to the dam, chasing shrinking water. Resort guests complained about the smell and the ugly shoreline. I heard rumors of refunds, cancellations, angry online reviews. And all I did was watch. Every day, I'd walk the bank, boots sinking into fresh mud, and remind myself, they destroyed my bridge. They thought I was powerless. This is me reminding them I'm not. Of course, it wasn't easy. Guilt has a way of creeping in, especially at night. I'd lie awake hearing the crickets, wondering if I'd gone too far. The lake wasn't just theirs. It was mine too. I loved that lake. I loved the herons that landed in the shallows, the way the surface caught the sunset in orange fire. Draining it was like burning my own house just to smoke out an intruder. But then I'd remember the bridge. The smashed stone footings. The hollow way my chest felt the morning I saw it gone. And guilt turned back into resolve. Week 2 was when the cracks really showed. I was on my porch when a black SUV rolled up, mud splattering under its tires. Out stepped the HOA president, Mr. Charles Whitman. You know the type. Suit too clean for the country, smile too practiced for sincerity. He strode up my steps like he owned them. Listen, he said, not even bothering to shake my hand. You've made your point. The water's low, fine. But if you don't close that gate right now, you'll be liable for millions in damages. Millions. Do you understand? I didn't answer at first. Just sip my coffee and let the silence stretch. Finally, I said, how much was my bridge worth? His jaw clenched. This isn't about a bridge. It's exactly about a bridge. I shot back. For the first time, his smile slipped. He leaned in close. You think you're the hero here. You're going to ruin this entire community. Families bought into this resort with their savings. You'll destroy everything. I looked him dead in the eye. Welcome to my world. And with that, I walked back inside, leaving him fuming on the porch. By week 3, the lake was nearly gone. What had once been a sparkling blue centerpiece was now a cracked basin, mud curling under the sun. Fish lay stranded, picked off by circling birds. The resort's dock sat tilted on dry earth, cabins overlooking what looked more like a wasteland than paradise. The HO called emergency meetings. Lawsuits flew like arrows. They tried every legal trick in the book to stop me. But here's the thing, the dam was mine. Legally. They couldn't touch it without trespassing. And by the time they scrambled to find some loophole, the damage was already done. Guests fled. Property values tanked. The $4 million dream they'd built turned to dust right in front of their eyes. And every time I walked past the drained lake, I felt the ghost of my bridge standing there with me, nodding in quiet approval. But here's the part I didn't expect. Not everyone hated me. One afternoon, as I was patching the fence near the road, an older couple pulled up. They weren't HOA board members. They weren't lawyers. They were just two folks who'd bought one of the smaller cabins near the edge of the resort. The woman rolled down her window and said, "We heard what happened with your bridge. My husband and we wanted to say we get it. They've been pushing us around too. Rules about what plants we can grow, what color we can paint our porch." You stood up to them. Nobody else has the guts. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, throat tight. Because for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about me. It wasn't just revenge. It was resistance. It was proof that the machine could bleed. By the time the lake was nothing more than a muddy scar, the HOA had all but collapsed. Lawsuits drained their funds, homeowners rebelled. The resort lost its shine, became just another failed project in the county. As for me, I rebuilt. Not the bridge, not yet. That could wait. But I started small. A garden. A fire pit by the dam. A new dock on the little stream that now ran where the lake used to be. Life didn't end when the water drained. It just changed. And maybe that's the lesson. Because here's the truth. You can tear down a bridge. You can drain a lake. You can even collapse a resort. But the thing that matters most, the will to stand up when someone pushes you down, that doesn't go away. It only grows stronger. So, if you're listening to this, and you've ever had something ripped from you, something you poured your heart into, remember this: sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about reminding yourself that you're not powerless. That no one, not even an HOA with millions of dollars, gets to decide the value of what you love. That bridge may be gone. The lake may be dry. But me, I'm still here. And that's a victory no one can take.